With the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie fast approaching, I thought that now would be a good time to give my thoughts on the original film that is just over 2 years old. God, why does time move so quickly? I've seen the film a fair few times now, and a lot of people really wanted to know what I thought about the movie, and more specifically, its characters. I mean, can you blame them? I've literally built this channel on character analysis. So, sit back, relax, and join me as we analyze the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Oh dear God, not that one. Oh, that's better. Yeah, it's no secret that this film kind of had a rocky announcement, especially with that Gangster's Paradise torture device making a lovely appearance in the infamous first trailer.
This is disgusting. This is awful in every way. If I could kill it, I would. But I legally can't. But I've considered it.
But mercifully, the director decided to do something that no one would have ever thought he would, and delay the film in order to fix the design, thank God. Then finally the movie released. I went to the cinema with a couple of friends to watch it, and I came out pleasantly surprised at just how good it was. You see, video game movies have always set an extremely low bar, especially when we had films like this, and that film that we shall forever not speak of. So I was excited to see this film, but my bar wasn't set too high, but it ended up being a pretty damn good time. I'm not saying this is the greatest movie ever, but it was way better than it had any right to be. In fact, it was so good that just a couple months later, the sequel was already officially announced. It was so awesome to finally see a piece of Sonic media taking the world by storm. Now in this analysis, I'm going to just quickly run through the story and intersplice between that, and at the end I'm going to analyze the characters going through. So if you're somebody who still hasn't seen the movie for whatever reason, I'd highly suggest that now is the point to click off the video and go watch the film and then come back to this. Please, I need the watch time. So the movie kicks off near the climax of the film with Sonic, played by Ben Schwartz, being chased by Dr. Robotnik, played by Jim Carrey of all people. I'll talk about him in a bit. The film then cuts back to the past where we see a younger Sonic in Green Hills Zone. Are you fucking kidding me? Okay. In all fairness, this is a new universe for the Blue Blur, and look at this shit. It's fucking gorgeous and makes just about every other rendition of the stage look poor by comparison. And they got friends by Hyper Potions to play over it. That is awesome. It's here where we're also introduced to a new character named Longclaw, who's basically Sonic's guardian who sends Sonic to Earth via ring portals after being attacked by the Echidna tribe. Crap. I personally would have liked to have seen more about Longclaw, and I don't actually think that she is dead, but they're probably just saving her for a sequel. But, just speaking logically here, I have no idea why she doesn't just go with Sonic through the portal, but hey, the movie needs to movie. Past this, the story itself is mostly a pretty standard buddy cop road trip adventure. And I mean that literally because one of the protagonists, Tom Wachowski, better known as Donut Lord and played by that guy who was in that movie with Russell Brand that one time, is actually a police officer in the town of Green Hills. Couldn't even say goodbye to Green Hill for 1 minute there, eh guys? Tom is living his life with his partner Maddie, played by Tika Sumpter, where he wants more out of his career and so wants to be an officer in the city of San Francisco. Simple enough. Sonic, on the other hand, has to go about his day alone as he has to isolate himself from everyone for fear of them finding out his power. Yeah, imagine having to isolate from the world. I gotta say, I really love Sonic's design in this film. The animators and the guys behind the CGI, who also conveniently did the CG cutscenes for Sonic 06, did an incredible job with him. He looks a little more rounded off and cutesy here, but it works better in the context of his character in the film, but I'll get to his character in just a minute. I'll also say that showing Sonic messing with Crazy Carl over here and the insertion of the Sonic meme was a stroke of genius and I loved it. But it's also during this that we start to see Sonic's isolation get to him. He yearns for friendship, and this culminates in his emotions getting the better of him, causing him to run so fast that he sends out a nationwide shockwave that causes a widespread blackout. This leads to the government to send in the big guns, aka Robotnik. Alright, now let's have the fun begin. I'll admit, I was a bit skeptical at first when it was announced that Jim Carrey was going to be Robotnik. I mean, don't get me wrong, Jim Carrey is one of my all-time favorite actors, and I love pretty much all the movies he's in, even if they're bad movies, just because he saves them single-handedly with his performance and deliveries. But I had wondered how he would pull off a depiction of Robotnik, and I was terrified that they were going to go with the same route that the games had been going in the more modern titles, and just turning the character into a complete joke. But actually, he damn near nailed it here. Now, is this like the good video game depictions of the character, like the one from Adventure 2? Well, not really. It does have some variation. The character here feels more like a loose cannon, but still calculated. If you remember the Eggman character analysis, I did state that one of the reasons that Robotnik works so well in games like Adventure 2 is because he was still a genuine threat, with hints of goofiness blended in from time to keep in tone with his character. And surprisingly, we did see that here, to an extent. This Robotnik was a threat to the heroes, although the characters near the end did start to treat him as more of a joke. It's weird, but it works somehow. Probably a lot of it due to Jim Carrey's pure charisma on screen. Obviously, this means that this Eggman is more comedic than the older game incarnations, but the comedy isn't so overdone to the point where you get this. Besides, this slight extra comedic edge works in Jim Carrey's favor in terms of the way that he delivers his lines. The writing here takes his performance into account, so he never fell out of character, or like he was in a role that wasn't made for him. Looking at you, Uncharted movie. Besides, the comedy never outstays its welcome. It's usually quick and punchy like Jim Carrey's comedy usually is, and on top of that, the two tones of seriousness and goofiness are nicely blended together here, unlike something like Lost World. In Lost World, Eggman had serious and silly moments, but they weren't balanced out in any way. It's one thing to have two tones for a character, but it's another thing entirely to successfully balance those tones. The Yakuza franchise, for example, does an excellent job at managing its tones so it never felt out of place. You had the seriousness and the silliness, but they blended, and that's what I think a good Eggman needs to do. I also love how Robotnik here has this extreme level of narcissism that was also potent with his character in the games. He has this sense of superiority over people, as shown by his delightful interaction with Colonel Nobody Cares. Although I will admit that there is a severe lack of Eggman Empire insignia, but maybe we'll see that in a future sequel to the film. And again, this is a different non-canon universe to the games, so I'm perfectly okay with some changes being made to these characters to make them work, as long as the character itself is still great. It's also during Robotnik's introduction that we're introduced to his underling, Agent Stone, played by Lee Majdoub. I have probably very heavily mispronounced that, but what are you gonna do? Agent Stone here works so well as a character for Robotnik to bounce off of. He's just somebody who works for Robotnik and reveres his work, and he gets his own moments that shows you just how much he's been under the authoritarian figure of Robotnik. Most notably, the scenes where he just randomly gets punched by Robotnik, and of course, the legendary steamed Austrian goat milk scene. But to get back on track with the film, Sonic is eventually found by Tom in his garage where he's promptly shot and incapacitated. You would think that the fastest creature alive would move out of the way of the shot, but the movie needs to movie. This causes Sonic to pass out and in doing so accidentally open a portal to San Francisco where he conveniently drops the rings on top of one of the tallest buildings there. You see, the way the ring portals work in this universe is that you think of an area and a portal is open to that area. And Tom just so happened to be wearing a San Francisco t-shirt, so you can kinda put two and two together and figure out exactly why this happened. Sonic does eventually wake up, but by then Robotnik is on their trail, and you do get some genuinely funny moments before Tom escapes with Sonic. And here is where we get a small problem, at least according to many people who do critique this film. Sonic being stuck in a car for a good chunk of this film. The reason for this is that when he tried running to San Francisco, he apparently didn't know the way, and this caused many people to discredit this portion of the film, saying stuff like, oh, you need to suspend your disbelief to make this work. But I actually think that this does work with Sonic's character, and I think that now is actually a good time to delve a bit into his characterization. It's fair to say that this movie incarnation of the character is quite different to his video game counterpart. mainly the older games, because honestly I could walk outside and find a stray stick that has more character than modern Sonic, but he does bring some new qualities here. In the games, he had what is known as a flat or static character arc, wherein his character stays the same without undergoing an arc, but he has the innate ability to influence characters around him and catalyze their arcs. This movie version, however, shows Sonic's vulnerabilities a lot more and has him go through an arc. We see how loneliness and isolation have affected him. He still has a high spirit, but he longs for real interaction, real friends. The closest that he's gotten to this goal so far is with Tom, and he knows that when he escapes to the Mushroom Planet, his loneliness will be amplified as it's literally a barren and lifeless wasteland filled with nothing but mushrooms. This is why I think he chose not to go to San Francisco on his own and just said that he doesn't know the way. It's because he wanted to maximize the amount of time he could spend on Earth before having to escape, and this way he can spend it with somebody who could be a potential friend. At least that's my personal headcanon. We even get to see more of this during the bar sequence when Sonic learns what a bucket list is, but is sad that he won't be able to stick around long enough to complete this. Tom takes note of his emotions and does his best to help Sonic tick off everything he can in a rather joyful montage where we actually see Sonic having the time of his life. Sonic in this movie is a lot more childlike than in the games, and it shows. But it isn't necessarily a bad thing. It gives Sonic a bit more depth and shows us more about his goals. And remember earlier how I said his design is a bit more rounded off? Well, this is why the design works for the character. The design itself makes Sonic look younger, which complements his ideals and goals for the film. And by the end of this incredible bar sequence, and after the pretty awesome, but mostly ripped off, but still pretty awesome Quicksilver segment, we see Tom and Sonic stop at a motel, and Tom sees that only one box hasn't been ticked off yet. That being, to make a real friend. That'll get you in the feels. Then Tom is officially declared a terrorist or something, and the road trip continues in the car, and we do get a pretty cool action sequence against Robotnik's tank that ends up evolving into several smaller vehicles. It's all fun and games till Sonic gets blown up by a sticky bomb and is promptly rushed to Maddie's sister's house to be treated. Sonic wakes up and is gifted his iconic shoes by JoJo, no not that one, but by Maddie's niece. I gotta say as well, I really like the writing for Maddie in this film. She's just somebody who's super helpful, cares for Tom, and wants to do a job. That's it. There's no serious agenda for a character or anything, which is such a breath of fresh air. Good job writing team. But as this all happens, Robotnik decided to do a little dance and analyze the quill from Sonic, only to learn that it carries unlimited power, and so devises a way to use it as an energy source for his machines. Then Maddie's sister gets kidnapped in her own home before Tom, Maddie, and Sonic take off for San Francisco, and, for reasons unknown, they let Sonic drive. Holy shit. Can Sonic even reach the pedals? Were there no cops around who saw this shit? Are Tom and Maddie just irresponsible for letting Sonic do this? Who's to blame here? Whatever. The movie needs to movie. Anyways, they eventually reach the building where the rings are, and Sonic decides not to run up quickly and get them, but to instead use a long drawn-out method involving jokes about child kidnapping in order to get to the top. This is another point of the film where people tend to have an issue. Why doesn't Sonic just run and grab the rings? But once again, my personal headcanon is that Sonic does all this to maximize his time with Tom and Maddie. When the rings are retrieved, we get a pretty heartfelt goodbye that's cut short by our Lord and Savior Jim Carrey donning a flight suit designed to reduce drag. It's here where we also get Sonic calling him Eggman for the first time, although this time it's not due to his stature, but instead because of his egg-shaped robots. I like this detail, and it makes sense with his character considering the fact that he spent most of the movie giving people nicknames like Donut Lord and Pretzel Lady. Sonic then decides to push Tom and Maddie off the edge because he was secretly the bad guy all along, and just before firing many missiles, we get another Quicksilver segment where Sonic's actual plan kicks off, which is where he wanted to use a ring portal to teleport the other two to safety. Then Sonic and Robotnik have a genuinely incredible chase sequence which links us back to the opening of the film and takes us all across the world, and I mean, just look at this. And it's extra clever when you think about it because Sonic has only experienced life in Green Hills. And so it would make sense that he would portal to landmarks of the planet, as that's probably some of the few areas of Earth that he actually knows. Most likely from television, as we do see him sneakily watch that at the beginning of the film. Eventually though, he does take a hit from Robotnik, which knocks him unconscious and conveniently into Green Hills again. where Tom also is. Tom eventually talks about how Sonic was his friend, and then Sonic taps into his inner fairy tale and uses the power of friendship to fuel him. He then takes his power back from the quill, which has unlimited power, yeah, work that one out, and delivers the smackdown to Robotnik by smacking into his cockpit, similar to the video game boss fights. Whilst the final hit is delivered, Tom opens a portal to the Mushroom Planet, and I call bullshit. How does Tom know in any way what the planet looks like in order to imagine it for the portal to form? Movie needs to movie, I don't know, let's just go. With this, Eggman is forcefully sent to this planet, and Sonic finally gets to tick off his final check on his bucket list, which is to make a real friend. Also, Crazy Carl is here with a chainsaw, and I laughed way too hard at that. All is peaceful in the end. We see the couple painting their house after Tom decides to stay in Green Hills, and the same government official who sends out Robotnik in the first place decided to visit them and treat it as though Robotnik never existed this whole time. What? You bastard! Are you telling me that nobody saw Robotnik? That none of the citizens in San Francisco saw that shit? There were, guaranteed, people blown up and most likely killed during that chase sequence, and nobody caught anything? No CCTV at all? Again, movie needs to movie? Eventually, we do see Sonic, who has had his home moved into the attic of Tom's house, and we do get a pretty wholesome ending and roll credits. Except that we get two post-credits scenes that set up the Sonic cinematic universe. The first scene shows Robotnik slowly getting crazier as he lives on the Mushroom Planet. He looks a lot more like the video game counterpart now, and I really do like this look. And he states that a lesser man would die out here, but he'll be back before Christmas. Beautiful. The second scene shows a portal opening out of nowhere, and BAM! Out pops Tails, and holy shit, that caught me by surprise. I just remember how excited everyone, including myself, was in the cinema to see this Tails, and now we're gonna see a whole lot more of him in the sequel. This is awesome. But yeah, that was the Sonic movie. All in all, it's pretty damn good. I really like the universe that's being set up, I like the characters, and I like that the movie decided to take its time with these characters and to let them sink in a bit and continue to grow further in sequels. I am quite fond of the more childlike and heartfelt direction that they're trying to take with Sonic here. He's still that free spirit who cares about nature, as evidenced from the turtle scene at the beginning of the film, but we also get to see a Sonic with more vulnerabilities. In most of the games, especially in the modern titles, the Sonic that is usually portrayed is just an invincible cartoon character with no flaws. But this is different. We see a Sonic who has a goal outside of just being the good guy. We see a Sonic who has been affected by being isolated since his childhood, and that is such a unique take on the character, and I'm all for unique takes outside of the main canon. Again, if the character does carry over some traits that are iconic with them, or will eventually evolve to have those traits. In my opinion, this doesn't beat out the Sonic that we saw in the adventure games, and certainly not the Sonic that we see in Black Knight. But this is still a very interesting interpretation, and I can't wait to see where they go with the character from here. Also, I gotta say it now, Ben Schwartz did a pretty solid job with his voice. It doesn't have that usual Sonic-y edge to it that the game voice actors gave, but again, this voice here does work in service with his character, and you do feel the emotions of Sonic through Ben Schwartz's voice, so yeah, good job, Ben. I also did really like James Marsden as Tom. I was expecting his performance to be a little stale, but no, I was surprised at just how good he was. I guess it helps that he's done a lot of films with CGI characters before, but yeah, overall, pretty solid. As was the rest of the cast actually. Not much to really complain about with casting decisions here. But come on, if we're gonna talk about characters, then we have to talk about the best thing in this film, Jim Carrey as Robotnik. Like I said, he's able to successfully deliver that nice blend of threatening and comical behavior, and neither one seriously sticks out from the other. I also adore his narcissism and his constant need for superiority over others by undermining them. And you can physically see at some points later in the film that he shows some discomfort when he's not in control of the situation. That's what I expected from him. Plus, he has this genuine thought throughout the film that robots are better than humans in every way, and brings this up on multiple occasions within the film and in the post-credit sequence, where he actually pretends to be a robot. It's an interesting reason as to why he cares about robots and gives zero shits about humans. It's also plausible because we do learn that he was an orphan, so maybe it's just that he sees it as humanity has failed him and wasn't there for him when he needed it, and so in that place he had robots.
He hates society because he wasn't nurtured, he wasn't loved, and this is what happens to a genius like that when they have no nurturing, no love, no guidance. And that's what he's become, the epitome of that. He hates the world because the world abandoned him. And I see him as somebody who wants to be the warden of a mechanized prison that captures the consciousness of the world.
The best thing though is that you can buy him as a credible villain, and that to me is what makes a villain. Credibility. And this is a very credible villain, and I can't wait to see him more unhinged in the sequels, and with that nice Jim Carrey edge to it. But this movie isn't perfect, and does suffer from some negatives. The first one has to be the fact that this movie's locations are held back by the nature of this film being a buddy cop film. Most of this film takes place in still locations, or a car. And there are just a few select times in the film where it does actually break away from this. And it sucks because I would have loved to have seen more of Sonic's world. It's not the worst thing, but you know, we've seen so many stories of CGI characters in Earth, so why can't we have Earth characters in CGI worlds? Maybe? Just a thought, you know? And yeah, there's a few points in this film where you've kind of just got to take the film's word for it that something is happening for a good reason and just not look way too deep into things. Otherwise, the film will start to fall apart in some areas. Again, I have my personal headcanons for a few moments, but there are some moments that you really can't dispute. Also, there are points in this film where the jokes just don't land. Like the fart joke in the hotel, and definitely the fucking Fortnite dances. That's right, dances. Plural. I mean, I get why this is here. This is a film targeted at kids, and loads of kids play Fortnite, but hey, I'm a cynical bastard. All in all though, this was a very straightforward film, if a little simple. But simplicity with the story allows for complexity with the characters. And if you've been following my channel, you know for a fact that I will always value well-written characters over a well-written story. I mean, in the perfect world I want both, but if I had to pick, it would be characters. Even still, the story here isn't bad, just a bit run-of-the-mill, but the characters here and their interactions with each other saved this and made it into, in my opinion, the best video game movie that has ever existed so far. And right now, the only video game film that looks like it's gonna top this is its sequel, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. But yeah, to give this film my final rating, it's a 7 out of 10. This is a very strong start for the blue blur on the big screen, but hopefully it continues to get better and better. And you know what? Already, before the second film is even released yet, the third film and a Knuckles spin-off TV show have already been announced. Like, what the hell? But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the film? Did you like it? Hate it? Mostly indifferent to it? Let me know because I do my best to read and respond to all comments. But thanks for watching. If you did enjoy the video, then do leave a like, and if you really enjoyed it, then hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on to keep up with all future content. But yeah, that's all from me, and I'll see you guys next time.